Well, hello, everybody. Pastor Steve here, and I'm glad you've joined me for today's devotion as we continue our journey through the book of Genesis. We are in Genesis chapter 31. So open your Bible there, and as you're doing that, just want to remind everyone that this coming Sunday morning is when we will vote by a secret ballot on the proposed bylaws for our church. So just be aware of that. That's this Sunday morning by secret ballot. This chapter is when Jacob takes his wives, children, all of his servants, his livestock, all of his possessions, and leaves Laban, his father-in-law, up in Syria and heads back to the promised land where Isaac, his father, is still living. And in this chapter, well, really the whole story, Laban, Jacob's father-in-law, was deceitful, not trustworthy, selfish. I mean, you could use a lot of adjectives, negative adjectives to describe him. But in his own way, he did love his daughters. You do get glimpses of that throughout this story as well. Jacob is not perfect either. We've seen that already in the book of Genesis. But he was a hard worker. I mean, nobody can take that from him. At least once he got over to where Laban was, he became a hard worker. And over those years, he was learning to trust God, learning to be a better man, learning even to be a man of God, you could say. And when you get to chapter 31, his wives, Rachel and Leah, the two daughters of Laban, agree with Jacob about their father and agree with Jacob that it's time for them to leave. And so they even work together, okay? These two sisters who at times were jealous of one another and, both married to Jacob, but they work together and so they leave. But the part that kind of jumped out at me, speaking to my heart devotionally or as a spiritual matter in chapter 31, was the scene of Rachel stealing the family idols. She stole her father's idols. And these were people, and you see it throughout Genesis, who worshiped God, but also had idols. Now, not Jacob or Abraham, but here Laban was like that. And she steals that family idol. And in verse 19, let's look at it, verse 19. When Laban had gone to shear his flock, then Rachel stole the household idols that were her father's. Now, why she did that, we don't know for sure. But she steals them, and these were, think of these like talismans. A talisman. They were believed to have some kind of maybe magical power to protect the family or result in blessings for the family. It was a very common thing. And she steals them. Why? Again, we're not sure. Maybe they were valuable. They were worth a lot. Made of gold or something. Maybe she wanted something to remind her of home and her family. Maybe she really believed in them. Okay, maybe that's where she grew up. That's the culture she was raised in. Maybe she really believed they had some magical powers. Maybe she was just mad at Daddy and wanted to spite him by stealing his family idols. We don't know. But what we do know is that Laban got mad, and I mean really angry. In verse 22, let me turn to it here in my own Bible. Verse 22, we read, and when it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob had fled, so it took a few days before he learned about it, then he took his kinsman with him and pursued him a distance of 7 days' journey. And he overtook him in the hill country of Gilead because he was able to travel faster than Jacob with all of his family and livestock and so on. And then down in verse 30, Jacob became angry and contended with Laban, and Jacob said to Laban, what is my transgression? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? See, Jacob didn't know that his favorite wife, Rachel, had stolen her dad, his father-in-law's family idols. And so Laban chases them down in his anger, and then Jacob gets mad. What's going on here? How dare you? And Laban tells him. And Jacob said, I didn't do that. You search my whole camp. And then in verse 32, really important, verse 32, he said, this is Jacob. He said, the one with whom you find your gods shall not live. Jacob went on record announcing a curse on the person who had stolen those family idols. If you find them with someone, that person will die. They'll be executed for their crime. They will not live. Well, we know that Rachel hid them and sat on them, and so that her father, her father didn't find them. But when you jump ahead in Genesis to chapter 35, Rachel was Jacob's favorite wife. She'd already given birth to Joseph. And years later, she gives birth to Joseph's little brother, Benjamin. And she dies during childbirth. Did not live to be an old woman. And of the matriarchs, Abraham's wife, Sarah, and Isaac's wife, Rebekah, and Jacob's wives, Rachel and Leah. Rachel is the only one that did not live to be that was not buried. The only one not buried in the cave that Abraham bought where he buried Sarah. And so without knowing it, in a sense, you could say that Jacob pronounced a curse on his own wife, his favorite wife, Rachel, when he said, the one who stole the gods shall die, will not live. And she didn't live to be an old woman. She only lived a few years after this and died during childbirth. It's really a sad story. Now, here's a spiritual lesson for us. This is a truth. Family gods like a talisman did not protect Rachel. And the truth is, in our lives as followers of Jesus Christ, there is no place for anything like a talisman. No place for magic charms, for lucky items, no place for special jewelry or amulets, nothing to which we attach some kind of magic. There is absolutely no place in the life of any follower of Jesus for that stuff. It's ungodly and can even open one up to demonic activity. And the Bible is very clear on this. And it creates issues. And you'll see that in the rest of Genesis and really throughout the Old Testament. So God's very clear. No. No magical items. I'm not talking about tricks. I'm talking about you really think there's, this is a dream catcher. This is what? No. There's no place for anything that's viewed as magical like that in the life of a follower of Jesus. And, that's that. No place for it. Because it says your trust is in that, not God. I'll see you tomorrow as we look at Genesis 32. God bless you, everybody.